What's up everybody, Brody here with Sew Yeah Quilting. Today in this tutorial, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to take your finished quilt tops and turn them into finished quilts. Now, I know everybody has a bag, a tote, a bucket, whatever, that is full of quilt tops that have been finished, that have kind of been shoved aside, waiting to be quilted. Now, lots of times we don't take it all the way to that end process. We just finish the quilt top, we finish piecing it, it's up on the design board, we say, hey, we're done. They look like this, right? They're shoved down into a bag, a bucket, whatever, and they haven't been prepped to go to the long armor. Now, you can quilt these yourself, you can take this to your local long armor, or you can send them here to us. Regardless, all of these principles are gonna be perfect for each one of those scenarios. Guys, let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna just start with the very basics. The first thing we need to do after you've chosen which quilt top you're gonna finish is we need to check the seams, okay? The last thing that you want when you take this into your quilter or when you send it into us is for them to be calling you or us to be calling you saying, hey, by the way, one of your seams is not sewn all the way, your two fabrics work together, we have to do a repair, okay? So the very first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna turn your quilt over like this one is now, and you're going to check your seams, okay? You can just do a quick little kind of pull check, double check, make sure that things are all together on your quilt, okay? Once you have done that, the next part is ironing, okay? Now I know it doesn't seem like this is a super important principle, but it really is, because if you have a very nicely pressed, nicely ironed quilt top, it's going to help the quilter at the end of the day make sure they can keep your quilt square. Some people are very particular about their ironing and their pressing. They'll press their seams open, they'll press their seams sideways. As long as everything's pretty uniform, it doesn't make a huge difference the way that you do it, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on my iron here, we're gonna press this, and then we're gonna keep going with how to prepare your quilt tops to be quilted. Let's go. You can see the difference between these two blocks here and these two blocks here. You can also check the back and make sure your seams are flat. This one, the seams had already been flattened previously. They look pretty good. We're just kind of getting the wrinkles out of the top here. Once your quilt top has been pressed, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you have pets where there's a lot of fuzzies on it to give it a quick lint roll, okay? We've gotten quilts in before when they've been sent in to us that have pet hair on them. If you have somebody that's allergic to them, that could cause the quilter an issue, so try to just lint roll it real fast before you send it in, okay? This quilt was already pre-squared up. Now, if your quilt needs to be squared, this is a great time to do it. You've already pressed everything and you can start to square. So imagine your quilt top is, let's say it's 50 inches on top, and at the bottom it is 49 inches. That's going to make a big difference when the quilter is quilting, because as it's shrinking down towards the bottom, you might get a pleat or a tuck, something that isn't gonna look 100% perfect, and you can avoid that by pre-trimming everything up. So this has already been trimmed, we've already lint rolled, we've already pressed. Now we're ready to go choose our batting, our backing, our thread color, and how we want it quilted. So let's go out to the show floor and get that done. Okay, now in choosing quilt backs, you have a couple of different options. You can go with your traditional 108, you can go with a minky, or you can do your two pieces of fabric sewn together, a 44-inch wide. I love 108s, they're super convenient to be able to use. It's 108 inches is your width of your fabric, so you don't have a seam in the back of your quilt. But it depends on who I am doing the quilt for, okay? That makes a big difference. I'm always partial to minky, so I'm definitely gonna be choosing a minky back for this, but 108s have their purpose, okay? So they're awesome to easily and quickly back a quilt, and especially because lots of them come in pretty standard colors to where you can choose something like a gray or something that's always gonna match what you're doing. But for this quilt right here, I know for sure I wanna get a minky. Now, minky comes in lots of different patterns, lots of different styles. I'm gonna choose something that complements my colors here. So I definitely wanna do something bright like these. A safe option almost always is if you could do something like a white. Whites are super safe to do. Blacks are super safe to do. I'm not gonna do any kind of prints here like with animals or anything on them like this one. Okay, I wanna keep the focus of my quilt to be here on the top. So I'm going to find something that I like, and I'm gonna come around the corner here and let's find it over here. All right, so I'm narrowing down my options here, and obviously I've got a lot to choose from. I could go green, blue, orange, red, purple, like I said, white before, but I found one minky over here that is kind of like a viola color that my purples would go well with. Backings are 100% up to you. If you see something you love that goes in the back that matches perfectly, great. If you see something that doesn't match at all but you love it, awesome. The back of the quilt can be just as interesting as the front of the quilt. This one's gonna kind of complement it because of the purple colors in here. Now I'm gonna be able to choose a pattern that's going to also be complemented by the backing. So let's walk over here to the table and we'll get started. So now one thing to remember when you've chosen your backing is that your quilter is going to need a little extra backing in order to quilt the top correctly. We like to have 4 inches all the way around the quilt of backing extra. So if your quilt is 60 inches wide, you're going to need 68 inches of batting, okay? That gives 4 inches on one side, 4 inches on the other, same thing for the top and the bottom. That will give your quilter a little extra space when the quilt stretches, it moves a little bit, and that way there's no mistakes with your quilt. We have a long arm quilting book. We're gonna choose our batting, we're gonna choose our thread colors. You can see sticking out the top here, we're gonna choose a pattern. If you're sending this in online, let's say you don't live here, you're gonna get on our website and you're going to click on long arm quilting services. You're gonna basically fill out everything we're gonna talk about here and then send in your quilts, okay? It makes it super easy. Or you're gonna work with your local quilter and they're gonna help you with the pattern. What we're gonna do first though is we're gonna choose our batting. Now, is there a huge difference in batting? Not particularly, okay? You have 100% cotton battings, which is what your like warm and natural, warm and white, different things like that. You have poly cotton mixes like a Hobbs 80-20 or a Dream batting. Then you also have some specialty battings that are like your bamboo or things like that. For the most part, personally, I use a mixture of the 80-20, so polyester cotton. It gives it a little bit more loft. Different battings have different lofts. You can do double battings, which give it a little extra double loft, or you can keep it very thin, especially if you're gonna do something like some very intricate quilting on it. Very thin will help it show off that quilting as well. As far as like the warmth of it, you're pretty much all the same. If you're getting into show quilts, yeah, the batting's gonna make a difference, but if you're just quilting this for yourself, a loved one, doesn't make a difference. Find whichever one you like, choose that one. So I'm gonna use something that is a white, because obviously my background is white, and then I'm gonna do a Hobbs 80-20. 80% cotton, 20% polyester. That way it gives us a little bit more loft to it, and that's just what I like personally, okay? So I've got my batting chosen. So now we need to choose our thread color, and thread color definitely makes a difference. So your quilting pattern and your thread color are going to really be kind of the dynamic of what your quilt top's going to look like. If I want people to just look at the piecing of this, I'm gonna choose something that blends in. I'm gonna choose a pattern that isn't too dense or crazy, and I'm gonna make this where the quilt itself is the star of the show. Let's say I wanna make it to where, hey, I really want my quilting to stand out. So maybe I could take this quilt here and I could find like a purple that's going to be quilted over the top of this. It's definitely gonna stand out. Obviously you have a lot of white on this, it's going to stand out, or like a light violet or something. Maybe I go with the blue tones. That's up to each individual person. So if I were taking this here, that one right there. So it matches my purples on the quilts and it's definitely gonna stick out. I like my quilting to stand out and I like people to be able to see it. Minky backs, quilting that stands out, that's just my style, it's the way I like to do it, okay? What I'm gonna do is I also need to choose a pattern. Now obviously if this is gonna be custom done and you're going to, you want a flower here and you want a feather here and you want whatever, that's a whole nother story. But if as far as edge to edge quilting goes, normally what we're gonna do is your quilter is gonna have a book of patterns, something like this. Ours are on our website, you can see them all there and you can choose something, okay? You want to get a pattern that either complements or clashes. Now I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but this one right here, you can see there's a lot of points, okay? There's points everywhere, there's triangles everywhere. I want something that is going to complement this. If I get this and I just put swirls over it, it's gonna kind of be like, well, is it swirling or is it pointed or is there triangles? So I wanna choose something that's going to have kind of maybe a triangle look to it. And I'm just gonna flip through here until I find something. So these are swirly, swirly, swirly. Don't want those, don't want those, don't want those. Check this out. If you want something that is going to complement your quilt, you want it to stand out, you want it to blend in, it's all up to you. But this right here, looking at the quilt top and looking at this, I can say, yeah, I like that. I want there to be, you see these triangles here, gives it kind of a more geometric look, which is just what this is going for. I want to add something in where you're gonna see almost 2 different levels of this quilt. Again, I'm using purple thread, so you're gonna see that quilting stand out and you also have your triangles here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the studio and we're going to finish up talking about the rest of things you need to do. And guys, this is gonna be an awesome quilt. All right, everybody, so let's do a quick recap. Double check and make sure that your seams are all sewn correctly. Once that's done, you are going to press it, you're gonna square it if it needs to be squared, and you're gonna give it a little lint roll if it needs it. Then from there, you're gonna choose your backings, okay? Then from there, we're gonna choose our batting, and we're going to choose our thread color as well as our pattern design. Once all of that's done, you can just get on sewyeahquilting.com and send it in to us. We'll quilt it for you and send it back to you, or take it into your local long armor. Or if you have your own long arm, you have your quilt 100% ready to go and put it onto your frame. So everyone, that is how you finish the quilt tops that are sitting in your house, okay? We would love to see you tag us on social media so we can see what you're making, as well as you can send them in here so we can quilt it for you. My name's Brody, teaching you how to sew like a pro, and we'll see you next time. Bye everybody.